The year is 530. The scorching sun beats down mercilessly on the arid plains near the fortress of Dara, in what is now southeastern Turkey. The ground trembles, not from an earthquake, but from the rhythmic march of 50,000 Persian warriors advancing like an unstoppable tide across the desert. At the walls of Dara, a young Byzantine general stands motionless, observing the approaching doom. His name is Flavius Belisarius. He is not yet 30 years old. Behind him, 25,000 men, half the number facing them, prepare for what seems like certain annihilation. His soldiers are exhausted, poorly trained, and terrified. Many have never seen real combat. The infantry is described by contemporaries as little more than an armed rabble. The Persian Empire has dominated these lands for generations. Their army is legendary. The Sassânids, heavy armored cavalry encased in steel from head to toe, are considered invincible. They have crushed every Byzantine force thrown against them for decades. Their generals are veterans of countless victories. Their confidence is absolute. Every military advisor would counsel retreat, abandon Dara, pull back to safer positions, live to fight another day. But Belisarius makes a decision that defies all conventional wisdom. He will not retreat. He will not hide behind walls. He will offer battle. The odds are 2-1 against him. His men are inferior in quality and experience. The Persians have the best heavy cavalry in the known world. They have momentum, morale, and the weight of history on their side. Logic says the Byzantines will be annihilated. Logic says this young general is leading his men to slaughter, but Belisarius sees something others do not. He sees opportunity where others see only disaster. In the days before the battle, he transforms the battlefield itself into a weapon. He digs trenches in patterns never seen before. He positions his forces in ways that break every rule of traditional warfare. He places his weakest troops where they cannot fail, and his strongest where they can deliver maximum impact. The Persian commander, Perozes, looks at the Byzantine positions and laughs. What can trenches do against the Persian war machine? What can this boy general possibly know that centuries of Persian military tradition does not? Within hours, the answer will shock the ancient world. The Battle of Dara is about to begin, and nothing will ever be the same. Before you find out how Belisarius achieved the impossible, make sure you are subscribed to this channel and hit the notification bell. You will not want to miss what happens next. To understand the magnitude of what happened at Dara, we must first understand the world that produced this confrontation. The year 530 sits at a pivotal moment in history. The Western Roman Empire has fallen. Rome itself is controlled by barbarian kings. The great legions that once conquered the known world are gone. But in the east, something survives. Constantinople, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire, stands as the last beacon of Roman civilization. Emperor Justinian I has recently ascended to the throne with an audacious dream: to restore the Roman Empire to its former glory, to reclaim the lost western provinces, to make Rome great again. But before he can look west, he must secure the east, and in the east stands an enemy as old as Rome itself. The Sassanid Persian Empire is not some minor kingdom, it is a superpower. For over 700 years, Persians and Romans have fought along their shared frontier. Sometimes these conflicts are minor border skirmishes, other times they are wars of annihilation. By 530, the Persians have the upper hand. They have won virtually every major engagement for the past 3 generations. The current war begins not with armies, but with religion. In the Caucasus Mountains lies the Christian kingdom of Iberia. The Persian king Kavad I, a Zoroastrian, attempts to force the Iberians to convert. The Iberian king refuses and flees to Byzantine territory, begging for protection. Kavad is furious. He demands the Iberians be returned. Justinian refuses. Kavad tries diplomacy. He makes an extraordinary offer. He will give his own son, Prince Khosrau, to Emperor Justin I as an adopted heir. This would bind the two empires in peace. Justin consults his advisors. They are suspicious. The adoption ceremony Kavad proposes is reserved for barbarians, not equals. Justin counters with humiliating terms. Kavad withdraws the offer, insulted. Diplomacy has failed. In 527, Justin orders an invasion of Persian-controlled Armenia. He sends two young generals, Sassânids and Belisarius. They march into Persian territory with confidence. They are crushed. The Persians defeat them decisively. The Byzantine offensive collapses. Sassânids and Belisarius retreat in disgrace. Justin dies in August of 527. His nephew Justinian inherits the throne and inherits the war. He tries to negotiate with Kavad. The Persian king is done talking. In 529, Kavad assembles an army of 40,000 men. Their target, the fortress city of Dara. Dara is not just any fortress. It sits on the main route between Persia and Mesopotamia. Whoever controls Dara controls trade, troop movements, and the balance of power in the region. The Byzantines built and fortified Dara in violation of an earlier treaty. The Persians want it dismantled. If diplomacy cannot achieve this, then force will. The Persian army marches west. They expect easy victory. After all, they have defeated every Byzantine army sent against them. Their cavalry is superior. Their generals are experienced. Their morale is high. They have 50,000 of the finest warriors in the world. What can the Byzantines possibly do to stop them? Justinian makes a decision that will change history. He appoints Belisarius as Magister Militum per Orientem, Supreme Commander of the East. Belisarius is given overall command of Byzantine forces in Mesopotamia. He is sent back to the region where he was defeated just 2 years earlier. This time, he will not fail. But who is this man? Who is Flavius Belisarius? He is born around 505 in Thrace in the Balkans. His origins are humble, possibly Greek, possibly Thracian. What is not in doubt is his extraordinary rise. As a young man, he joins the Byzantine army and quickly distinguishes himself in the imperial bodyguard of Emperor Justin. He is charismatic, intelligent, and fearless. He rises through the ranks with stunning speed. By 527, while still in his early 20s, he is given command of forces in the east alongside the veteran general Sassânids. The campaign is a disaster, but Belisarius learns from it. He studies Persian tactics. He analyzes their strengths and weaknesses. He understands that the Byzantine army cannot defeat the Persians in a traditional battle. Something new is required. Something radical. In 530, Justinian gives him a second chance. Belisarius is assigned a co-commander, the experienced diplomat Hermogenes, to keep him balanced. Together they march east with an army of 25,000 men. It is not enough. Everyone knows it is not enough. But it is all Justinian can spare. The empire is overstretched, the treasury is strained, and enemies threaten from multiple directions. When Belisarius arrives at Dara, he receives grim news. The Persian army is not 40,000 as originally reported. It is 50,000. King Kavad has sent an additional 10,000 reinforcements under General Persius, a seasoned commander with a reputation for ruthlessness. Persius establishes his camp at Amodius, approximately 5 kilometers from Dara, close enough to threaten, far enough to maneuver. Belisarius climbs the walls of Dara and surveys the Persian positions. His officers urge caution. Some suggest withdrawing to more defensible positions. Others recommend waiting for reinforcements that may never come. A few quietly suggest surrender. The math is simple and brutal. 50,000 Persians against 25,000 Byzantines. The quality gap favors the Persians even more than the numbers. Persian Severan cavalry are the most feared warriors in the world. Byzantine infantry are undertrained and unreliable. But Belisarius sees what others do not. He sees the terrain. He sees the walls of Dara at his back, providing support and supply. He sees the open ground in front of him, which the Persians assume favors their cavalry, and he sees an opportunity. The Persians expect the Byzantines to cower behind walls or flee. They do not expect a fight. Belisarius will give them one. He gathers his officers and announces his decision. They will not retreat. They will not hide. They will prepare the battlefield and face the Persians in open combat. The room falls silent. Some officers think he is mad. Others think he is suicidal. But Belisarius is neither. He is a man who understands that sometimes the greatest risk is to do nothing. Sometimes audacity is the only path to survival. The Persians have won for generations because they fight the same way every time, and their enemies respond the same way every time. Belisarius will break that pattern. He will turn the battlefield itself into a trap, and the Persians, confident in their superiority, will walk right into it. The stage is set. The die is cast. The fate of empires hangs in the balance. The Persian army arrives in full force in the spring of 530. General Perazes sets up his command at Amodius, a flat expanse of desert approximately 5 kilometers from the walls of Dara. From the Byzantine ramparts, soldiers watch in growing dread as the Persian camp expands day after day. Tents spread across the horizon like a vast city. Smoke from thousands of cooking fires darkens the sky. The rumble of 50,000 men preparing for war is constant and unnerving. The composition of the Persian force is terrifying. Nearly half of their army consists of heavy cavalry, the legendary Sassânids. These are not ordinary horsemen. They are mobile fortresses. Each warrior is encased in scale armor from head to toe. Their horses wear armor as well, protecting the animal's head, chest, and flanks. They carry long lances, swords, maces, and sometimes bows. The Romans call them clibanarii, a term that translates roughly as baking ovens, because the metal armor becomes unbearably hot under the Middle Eastern sun. These cataphracts are the shock troops of the Persian military machine. They charge in tight formation, a wall of steel and horseflesh that crushes everything in its path. For generations, no Byzantine infantry formation has successfully withstood a full charge of Persian heavy cavalry. They break through shield walls like hammers through pottery. They trample foot soldiers into the dust. They are the reason Persia has dominated the battlefield for decades. Supporting the Sassânids are lighter cavalry units, including mercenaries from the steppes. 3,000 Sabir Huns have been recruited for this campaign. These horsemen are masters of the mounted archery tactics that have terrorized civilized armies since the days of Attila. They swarm around enemy formations, shooting arrows from horseback, retreating before counterattacks, wearing down opponents through constant harassment. The Persian infantry is less impressive. Contemporary Byzantine historians describe them as an armed rabble of little military value. The bulk consists of the Paean, lightly armed spearmen levied from the peasant population. They carry large rectangular wicker shields and stand in dense formations, providing a barrier from which archers can fire volleys. This tactic has been used in the Middle East since the time of the Assyrian Empire, thousands of years before. The historian Procopius, who will later document this campaign, describes them contemptuously as a crowd of pitiable peasants who come into battle for no other purpose than to dig through walls, despoil the slain, and serve the soldiers. There are also Kurdish javelineers and some units of better-trained heavy infantry. But the true strength of the Persian army lies in its cavalry, and in sheer numbers. 50,000 men against 25,000. The Persians have every reason to be confident. They have won virtually every major battle against the Byzantines in living memory. Their commanders are veterans. Their troops are experienced. Their supply lines are secure. Victory seems inevitable. Inside the walls of Dara, the mood is grim. Byzantine soldiers watch the Persian army assemble and know they are facing annihilation. Many are conscripts with minimal training. The infantry in particular is of poor quality, neglected, undisciplined, prone to panic. These are not the legendary legions of ancient Rome. Those days are long gone. This is an army in transition, caught between the heavy infantry focus of the old Roman military and the cavalry-dominated warfare of the medieval period to come. Belisarius understands all of this. He knows his infantry cannot stand against Persian cavalry in open battle. He knows his cavalry, while brave, is outnumbered and outmatched by the Sassânids. He knows that a traditional deployment will result in traditional defeat. So he decides to do something no Byzantine general has attempted before. He will prepare the battlefield itself to compensate for his weaknesses. He summons engineers and begins designing a system of fortifications. Not permanent walls, but fieldworks, trenches dug into the hard desert soil. But these are not ordinary defensive trenches. Belisarius has studied the Battle of Thanuris, fought 2 years earlier in 528. At Thanuris, the Persians used trenches and obstacles to disrupt Byzantine cavalry charges. Belisarius will turn their own tactic against them. He orders his men to dig a series of deep trenches approximately 1 stone's throw from the main gate of Dara, roughly 100 meters from the walls. But the trenches are not dug in straight lines. They are angular, forming a complex pattern that channels enemy movement into predetermined killing zones. Crucially, gaps are left between the trenches, passages wide enough for cavalry to pass through quickly, but narrow enough to control. The design is brilliant. The trenches will break up Persian cavalry charges, forcing the heavy cataphracts to slow down and navigate around obstacles. This negates their primary advantage: momentum. A charging line of heavy cavalry is devastating. A disorganized mass of heavy cavalry picking its way through trenches is vulnerable. The gaps in the trenches serve a dual purpose. They allow Byzantine cavalry to quickly move through for counterattacks, while preventing the Persians from simply flowing around the obstacles. Behind the central trench, Belisarius positions his unreliable infantry. They are placed close enough to the walls of Dara that archers on the battlements can provide covering fire. The infantry's job is simple: stand firm and hold the center. They do not need to advance or maneuver. They just need to not run away. By placing them with their backs nearly against the fortress walls, Belisarius minimizes the chance of panic and rout. On the flanks, he deploys his cavalry, the mobile striking force of his army. The Byzantine cavalry is lighter than the Persian cataphracts but more maneuverable. They carry spears, swords, and bows. They are trained to fight in smaller, more flexible units, rather than the massed formations favored by the Persians. Belisarius places them forward of the infantry, positioned to strike at the flanks of any Persian force that engages the center. But Belisarius has more tricks prepared. He has recruited Hunnic mercenaries, descendants of the warriors who once terrorized Europe under Attila. By 530, the Hunnic Empire has long since collapsed, and these steppe warriors serve as mercenaries across Europe and the Near East. Belisarius hires 600 of them. 300 under the commanders Sunicus and Igon are placed on the left flank. 300 more under Simus and Ascan are positioned on the right. These Huns are masters of mounted archery and hit-and-run tactics. They will harass and weaken Persian formations before Byzantine cavalry moves in for the kill. The left and right wings of the Byzantine army are commanded by Hermogenes and Baucis respectively, experienced officers Belisarius trusts to execute his battle plan. But Belisarius reserves the most critical commands for his inner circle. On the left flank, hidden from Persian view, Belisarius positions a force of Heruli cavalry under the command of Pharis. The Heruli are fierce Germanic horsemen originally from Scandinavia who became foederati, federated allies, in service to Constantinople. They are shock troops, heavy cavalry capable of delivering devastating charges. Pharis is ordered to remain concealed until the decisive moment. This hidden force is Belisarius's ace in the hole, a surprise the Persians will not see coming. Behind the center, Belisarius keeps his most elite troops in reserve, his bucellari, his personal household cavalry. These are professional soldiers who serve Belisarius directly, bound to him by oaths of personal loyalty. They are the best trained, best equipped warriors in the Byzantine army. Command of this reserve is given to John the Armenian, Belisarius's childhood friend and most trusted lieutenant. John is a warrior of exceptional skill and courage. He will prove instrumental in the battle to come. The Persian commander Perazes observes the Byzantine preparations and is amused. Trenches? The Byzantines are digging holes in the ground? This is desperation, not strategy. Persian cavalry has trampled countless defensive works throughout history. A few ditches will not stop the Savaron. The Byzantines are simply delaying the inevitable. What Perazes does not understand is that Belisarius is not trying to stop the Persian cavalry. He is trying to control them, to channel them, to break their formations and create opportunities for counterattack. The trenches are not walls to hide behind. They are part of an integrated system designed to turn Persian strengths into weaknesses. As the sun sets on the eve of battle, both armies settle into their positions. The Persians are confident, almost jovial. They have crushed the Byzantines before. They will do so again. The Byzantines are terrified but determined. They have dug the trenches. They have prepared the battlefield. Now they can only wait and trust in their young general's vision. Belisarius stands on the walls of Dara, looking out at the Persian campfires stretching to the horizon. Tomorrow, the world will discover whether genius can triumph over overwhelming force. Dawn breaks over the plains of Dara. The sky is cloudless, promising another day of brutal heat. As the sun rises, both armies begin to stir. Horns sound across the Persian camp. Drums beat a steady rhythm. 50,000 warriors prepare for battle. They move with the confidence of men who have never known defeat in this theater of war. Their armor gleams in the morning light. Their banners snap in the desert wind. On the Byzantine side, the mood is tense. 25,000 men stand in their assigned positions. The infantry huddles behind the central trench, gripping spears with white knuckles. The cavalry on the flanks checks weapons and adjusts saddles. The Hunnic mercenaries test their bowstrings. Everyone knows what is at stake. This is not a border skirmish. This is a battle that will determine the fate of the eastern frontier. Win, and the Byzantine Empire survives. Lose, and Dara falls, opening the road to Constantinople itself. Belisarius rides along the lines, speaking to his men. He does not give a grand speech. He simply reminds them of their training, their positions, and their purpose. He tells the infantry to hold the center no matter what. He tells the cavalry to wait for his signal. He tells the Huns to harass but not commit too early. And he reminds everyone that they have one advantage the Persians do not. They know this battlefield. They prepared it. They control it. The Persian army advances. 50,000 men move across the desert in massive formations. The heavy cavalry takes position in the center and on the wings. The infantry masses behind them. The Sabir Hun mercenaries hover on the flanks, ready to swarm forward. General Perazus rides at the head of his army, surveying the Byzantine positions. He sees the trenches and dismisses them. He sees the smaller Byzantine force and knows victory is certain. He gives the order. The Persians move forward to within 20 stads of the Byzantine lines, approximately 3.5 kilometers, close enough to engage, far enough to intimidate. But something unexpected happens. The Persians do not immediately charge. Instead, individual warriors ride forward from the Persian lines. They shout challenges in Persian and Greek. They demand single combat. This is an ancient tradition, a ritual of warfare dating back to Homer. Before the armies clash, champions meet in single combat to determine whose gods favor them, whose cause is just, whose warriors are superior. The Byzantines hesitate. Who will answer these challenges? The Persian champions are clearly elite warriors, men of noble birth, heavily armed and armored, skilled in mounted combat. To refuse the challenge is to admit cowardice, to damage morale before the battle even begins. But to accept is to risk humiliation and death. Then something remarkable happens. A man steps forward from the Byzantine ranks. His name is Andreas. He is not a noble. He is not even a soldier in the traditional sense. Andreas is a bath attendant, a slave who works in the public baths of Dara. But Andreas has a secret. For months, he has been training with Belisarius's household cavalry. In his spare time, away from his duties, Andreas has learned to fight. He has practiced with sword and spear. He has ridden horses. He has transformed himself from servant to warrior. Andreas requests permission to accept the Persian challenge. Belisarius grants it. The Byzantine army watches in stunned silence as this bath slave rides out to face a Persian nobleman. The Persian champion laughs. He sees a commoner, poorly armored, riding an unremarkable horse. He expects an easy kill, a quick demonstration of Persian superiority. The two warriors meet in the space between the armies. They circle each other. The Persian attacks first, spurring his horse forward with lance leveled. Andreas dodges, turns his horse sharply, and strikes. His spear finds a gap in the Persian's armor. The Persian falls from his saddle and does not rise. The Byzantine army erupts in cheers. The Persian army falls silent. Another Persian champion rides forward, enraged by his comrade's death. He challenges Andreas again. Andreas accepts. The second duel is longer, more brutal. The warriors exchange blows, their weapons ringing against armor and shield. Finally, Andreas lands a killing strike. The second Persian champion falls. Andreas rides back to the Byzantine lines to thunderous applause. The morale shift is palpable. The Byzantines, moments ago terrified, now believe they can win. The Persians, moments ago confident, now feel the first stirrings of doubt. Modern historians debate whether these duels happened exactly as described. Procopius, our primary source, has a tendency toward dramatic embellishment. Some scholars suggest the duels are literary devices rather than historical fact. However, other sources, believed to be based on official military documents, do reference individual combats during the battle, though they place them at different stages and do not mention Andreas by name. What is certain is that something happened on that first day to dramatically boost Byzantine morale and shake Persian confidence. As the day progresses, more skirmishes occur. Small groups of cavalry probe enemy positions. Archers exchange volleys. But there is no general engagement. Both sides are testing each other, looking for weaknesses. As evening approaches, the Persians withdraw to their camp at Amodius. The first day ends without a decisive battle. But the psychological advantage now lies with the Byzantines. That night, Belisarius makes an unexpected move. He sends a letter to General Perazes. The message is diplomatic, almost philosophical. Belisarius writes that the first blessing is peace, as is agreed by all men who have even a small share of reason. He suggests that their disputes be settled by discussion rather than bloodshed. He offers negotiation instead of battle. Some historians interpret this letter as a genuine attempt at peace. Others see it as psychological warfare, a way to further unsettle the Persians, to make them question their assumptions, to plant seeds of doubt. Perazes reads the letter and rejects it. He has 50,000 warriors. He has numerical and qualitative superiority. He has the weight of generations of victories behind him. Why would he negotiate when victory is certain? He sends back his refusal. Battle will commence the next day. The second day dawns. This time, there will be no duels, no delays. The Persians are finished with preliminaries. They want blood. General Perazes has received reinforcements during the night, another 10,000 troops from the garrison at Nisibis. The Persian army now numbers close to 50,000 against the Byzantine 25,000. The numerical superiority is overwhelming. The Persian army deploys in traditional formation. Heavy cavalry dominates the center and wings. The Kadishe, elite Persian warriors from the Kadasani region, form the core of the right wing. The Sabir Huns spread out on the extreme flanks, ready to envelop the Byzantine position. Infantry masses in the rear, ready to exploit any breakthrough. It is a textbook deployment, the same formation that has won countless battles. Belisarius observes from his command position behind the Byzantine center. His forces are arrayed exactly as he planned. Unreliable infantry in the center behind the trench. Byzantine cavalry on the left and right flanks. Hunnic mercenaries supporting each flank. The Heruli under Faris remain hidden on the left, their position concealed by terrain features. And behind the center, John the Armenian waits with the Buchalari reserve, ready to strike at the decisive moment. Perazes gives the order. The Persian army advances. The ground trembles under the hooves of thousands of horses. The air fills with the sound of drums, horns, and war cries. The Persians come forward in a massive wave, confident that sheer weight of numbers will carry the day. The first Persian assault targets the Byzantine left wing. Thousands of Persian cavalry, including the elite Kadishaya, thunder toward the position held by Hermogenes. The Byzantine cavalry braces for impact. The Persians smash into the line with devastating force. Byzantine horsemen are thrown back. Gaps open in the formation. For a moment it appears the left wing will collapse entirely. Then the Hunnic mercenaries under Sunicas and Igon spring into action. 300 steppe warriors wheel their horses and launch a storm of arrows into the exposed flanks of the Persian cavalry. The Persians, focused on breaking through the Byzantine front, do not see the attack coming. Arrows find gaps in armor. Horses scream and fall. Persian warriors tumble from saddles. At the same moment, the concealed Heruli cavalry under Faris emerges from its hidden position. These Germanic shock troops charge into the Persian flank with brutal force. The Persians, already disrupted by the Hunnic arrows, now face a fresh cavalry charge from an unexpected direction. Their formation breaks. Warriors who moments ago were pushing forward now find themselves surrounded. Panic spreads through the Persian left. The Byzantine cavalry under Hermogenes, reinforced and emboldened, counterattacks. The Persians, caught between multiple threats and unable to maneuver effectively due to the trenches behind them, begin to retreat. What started as a victorious advance becomes a disorganized withdrawal. The Byzantine left wing has held. General Perazes watches his left wing crumble and makes a decision. He will commit his right wing. He orders a massive assault on the Byzantine right flank, the position held by Buzes. This time, the Persians commit even more cavalry. The Kadashay and other elite units wheel around and join the assault. The Persian right wing, reinforced and determined, charges the Byzantine right with overwhelming force. The impact is tremendous. The Byzantine right wing staggers under the blow. Buzes' cavalry fights desperately, but they are outnumbered and outmatched. The Persian heavy cavalry pushes forward relentlessly. Byzantine horsemen fall back step by step. The line begins to buckle. If the right wing collapses, the entire Byzantine position will be flanked and destroyed. The Hunnic mercenaries under Simus and Ascan fight valiantly, pouring arrows into the Persian formations. But there are too many targets. The Persians absorb the casualties and keep advancing. The Byzantine right wing is on the verge of breaking. Soldiers glance toward the rear, calculating escape routes. Panic is spreading. This is the moment Belisarius has prepared for. This is why he kept his best troops in reserve. This is why John the Armenian and the Butsalari household cavalry have been waiting behind the center. Belisarius gives the signal. John leads the reserve forward. The Butsalari thunder through the gaps in the trenches, the passages Belisarius designed specifically for this purpose. They emerge onto the battlefield like a spear thrust from behind a shield. These are elite warriors, superbly trained and equipped, riding the best horses in the Byzantine army. They are not scattered conscripts. They are professional soldiers sworn to Belisarius personally. John leads them in a charge directly into the exposed flank of the Persian right wing. The Persians, focused entirely on breaking Buzes' line, do not see the counterattack until it strikes home. The Butsalari slam into the Persian cavalry with devastating effect. Lances shatter against armor. Swords rise and fall. The disciplined charge of elite Byzantine cavalry meets the disordered mass of Persian horsemen locked in frontal combat. Belisarius himself rides forward to join the charge. He does not command from the rear. He leads from the front, his purple cloak visible to friend and foe alike. His presence electrifies the Byzantine forces. The reserve cavalry follows their general into the heart of the enemy formation. The Persian right wing, struck simultaneously from front and flank, begins to crumble. Warriors who moments ago were on the verge of victory now find themselves fighting for survival. The Butsalari cut through the Persian ranks with brutal efficiency. Byzantine cavalry from Buzes' line, seeing reinforcements arrive, rally and counterattack. The Hunnic mercenaries continue their relentless archery, targeting Persian officers and standard bearers. The collapse begins slowly, then accelerates. A few Persian warriors turn their horses to flee, then dozens, then hundreds. The retreat becomes a rout. The entire Persian right wing breaks and runs. Warriors throw down weapons and spurs their horses toward the safety of Ammonius. Officers shout orders that no one obeys. Discipline evaporates. The rout spreads to adjacent units. The Persian center, seeing both wings collapse, begins to waver. These are infantry formations, the pay and peasant levies that Procopius described as useful only for digging and looting. They have no stomach for a fight that is clearly turning against them. Without cavalry support, without flanking protection, they are exposed and vulnerable. They begin to retreat as well, slowly at first, then faster. Belisarius orders pursuit. The Byzantine cavalry races after the fleeing Persians. For several kilometers, the pursuit continues. Byzantine horsemen cut down stragglers and scatter enemy formations. The Persian army, 50,000 strong just hours ago, is now a disorganized mob fleeing in panic across the desert. But Belisarius does not order a total massacre. After a few kilometers of pursuit, he sounds the recall. His cavalry regroups and returns to the Byzantine lines. Many officers question this decision. Why not destroy the Persian army completely? Why let them escape? Belisarius has several reasons. First, his army is exhausted and his supply lines are limited. A long pursuit into Persian-controlled territory risks overextension. Second, allowing the enemy to escape prevents them from fighting with the desperation of men with no hope. A cornered army fights to the death. An army with an escape route breaks and runs. Third, and perhaps most important, Belisarius understands that this battle serves a strategic purpose beyond mere killing. He has proven that the Byzantines can defeat the Persians. He has shattered the myth of Persian invincibility. He has secured Dara. Further bloodshed would accomplish little. The Battle of Dara is over. The Persian army retreats to Amodius, then withdraws entirely from the region. Byzantine casualties are relatively light, a few hundred dead, perhaps 1,000 wounded. Persian losses are catastrophic. Contemporary sources claim thousands dead and many more wounded. More importantly, the Persian army's morale is shattered. Soldiers who believed themselves invincible now know they can be beaten. As the sun sets on the battlefield, Byzantine soldiers celebrate their impossible victory. Against all odds, outnumbered 2-1, facing the most feared cavalry in the world, they have won. And at the center of that victory stands a young general, not yet 30 years old, who has just announced himself as one of the great military minds of his age. Flavius Belisarius has arrived. The news of the Byzantine victory at Dara spreads across the ancient world like wildfire. In Constantinople, Emperor Justinian receives the report with jubilation. For the first time in generations, a Byzantine army has decisively defeated a major Persian force in open battle. The implications are enormous. The eastern frontier, which has been a source of constant anxiety and drain on imperial resources, is suddenly secure. The myth of Persian military invincibility lies shattered in the dust of Dara. Belisarius becomes an instant hero. The young general who was humiliated in defeat just 3 years earlier is now celebrated as a military genius. Justinian showers him with honors and titles. More importantly, the emperor's confidence in Belisarius is cemented. This trust will shape the next 3 decades of Byzantine history, as Justinian relies on Belisarius to execute his grand vision of restoring the Roman Empire. Across the frontier, the reaction is shock and dismay. The Persian court in Ctesiphon receives the news with disbelief. How could 50,000 Persian warriors be routed by half that number of Byzantines? The defeat is not just military, but psychological. Persian commanders who have grown accustomed to easy victories over Byzantine forces now must reconsider their assumptions. The balance of power in the region has shifted. For the soldiers who fought at Dara, both Byzantine and Persian, the battle becomes the defining moment of their lives. Byzantine veterans tell and retell the story of how they stood against impossible odds and won. The tale of Andreas the Bath slave defeating Persian champions in single combat becomes legend. The image of Belisarius leading the Busalari charge becomes iconic. These stories circulate through taverns and marketplaces, growing more elaborate with each retelling, cementing the battle's place in popular imagination. The strategic impact is immediate. The Persian army withdraws from the region. Dara remains firmly in Byzantine control. The frontier stabilizes. For the first time in years, Byzantine civilians in Mesopotamia can sleep without fear of Persian raids. Trade routes reopen. Tax revenues increase. The victory at Dara has bought the Byzantine Empire breathing room to address other threats. But the euphoria does not last long. The Persians are not finished. King Kavad is humiliated, but not defeated. He still commands vast resources and can field new armies. Within months, preparations begin for a counteroffensive. This time, the Persians will not underestimate their enemy. The following year, 531, brings a dramatic reversal of fortune. The Persians launch a new invasion, but this time they employ different tactics. They recruit the Lakhmid Arabs, a client kingdom that provides fast, mobile cavalry familiar with desert warfare. The combined Perso-Arab force advances under the command of Spabad Azarethes, an experienced general determined to avenge the defeat at Dara. On the 19th of April, 531, the two armies meet near the town of Callinicum on the Euphrates River. Belisarius commands the Byzantine forces. He has numerical advantage this time. His army is larger than the Persian force. Victory should be assured. But fate has other plans. Belisarius makes a critical tactical error. He chooses to command from ground level rather than from an elevated position. This denies him the strategic overview he needs to coordinate his forces effectively. He cannot see the full battlefield. He cannot observe enemy movements in time to respond. His perspective is limited, his situational awareness compromised. Compounding this mistake is the timing of the battle. Belisarius initially plans to wait until after Easter, which would give him an additional day to scout the battlefield and prepare his positions. But his soldiers are eager for another victory. They pressure him to attack immediately. Against his better judgment, Belisarius yields to their enthusiasm. He abandons his careful planning in favor of immediate action. The battle is a disaster. Byzantine cavalry charges are uncoordinated. Infantry formations break under pressure. Officers fail to follow orders or actively disobey them, pursuing personal glory instead of executing the battle plan. The Persians, learning from their defeat at Dara, employ more flexible tactics. The Lakhmid Arabs harass Byzantine flanks with hit-and-run attacks, disrupting formations and creating chaos. The Byzantine army is defeated. Casualties are heavy on both sides, but the strategic victory belongs to Persia. Belisarius retreats in disgrace. The general who was celebrated as a genius just 1 year earlier is now blamed for a catastrophic defeat. His critics point out that he had superior numbers, yet still lost. His tactical errors are obvious in hindsight. His reputation suffers significantly. Emperor Justinian, faced with a renewed Persian threat and a demoralized army, makes a pragmatic decision. He negotiates. The result is the Treaty of Eternal Peace, signed in 532. The terms are unfavorable to Byzantium. The empire agrees to pay substantial tributes to Persia, 11,000 pounds of gold. In exchange, Persia agrees to a permanent peace and withdraws from Byzantine territory. The treaty is costly, but it achieves Justinian's objective. It secures the eastern frontier, freeing Byzantine resources for other campaigns. And despite its name, the Eternal Peace will actually last 8 years. A remarkably long period of stability for the volatile Byzantine-Persian frontier. Belisarius loses his title of Magister Militum per Orientem. He is no longer supreme commander of the East. The defeat at Callinicum has tarnished his reputation. Many in Constantinople wonder if Dara was simply luck, a fortunate accident rather than evidence of genuine military genius. Belisarius retreats from public life, his career apparently over before it truly began. But then comes 532 and the Nika riots. A sporting rivalry between chariot racing factions in Constantinople escalates into a full-scale urban uprising. Rioters attempt to overthrow Justinian and install a new emperor. The city burns. Justinian prepares to flee. In this moment of crisis, the emperor turns to Belisarius. Belisarius, along with another general named Narses, leads a force of loyal troops into the hippodrome where tens of thousands of rioters have gathered. What follows is one of the most brutal suppressions of civil unrest in history. The soldiers massacre approximately 30,000 people trapped in the stadium. The rebellion is crushed in blood. Justinian's throne is secured. The Nika riots prove that Belisarius possesses more than battlefield genius. He has the ruthlessness to make hard decisions and execute them without hesitation. Justinian's confidence in him is restored. Within a year, Belisarius will be given command of the expedition to reconquer North Africa from the Vandal kingdom. Meanwhile, Dara itself becomes a symbol and a prize. The fortress city that witnessed Belisarius's greatest victory remains a focal point of Byzantine-Persian conflict for decades. In 540, Persian king Khosrau I, son of Kavad, launches an invasion of Byzantine territory, breaking the Eternal Peace. He attacks Dara, but fails to take it. In 544, he tries again. Again, the fortress holds. For 30 years, Dara stands as a monument to Byzantine resilience and Persian frustration. But in 573, Khosrau finally succeeds. After a prolonged siege, Dara falls to the Persians. The psychological impact is devastating. Emperor Justin II, great-nephew and successor of Justinian, receives the news and suffers what contemporary sources describe as a mental breakdown. He becomes delusional, violent, and unable to govern. His wife Sophia and his friend Tiberius Constantine effectively take control of the empire until Justin's death in 578. The loss of Dara opens the road deeper into Byzantine territory. Persian armies march west, threatening Syria and Anatolia. The strategic situation that Belisarius secured in 530 has completely reversed. The frontier is once again in crisis. In 586, a new Byzantine general named Maurice defeats the Persians in battle and recaptures Dara. The fortress returns to Byzantine control, but the victory is temporary. In 604, under the renewed Persian king Khosrau II, the Persians defeat the Byzantines again and retake Dara. This time, they destroy the city completely, razing its fortifications to ensure it can never again serve as a Byzantine stronghold. The Byzantines rebuild Dara in 628, but by then, the world is changing. A new power is rising in Arabia. In 639, Muslim Arab armies sweep out of the desert and capture Dara. The fortress that was fought over by Romans and Persians for a century passes into Arab control. It will remain in Muslim hands for 3 centuries. In 942, a resurgent Byzantine Empire under ambitious emperors attempts to reclaim its lost eastern territories. Byzantine forces sack Dara. In 958, Emperor John Tzimisces sacks it again. But these are raids, not conquests. The Byzantines never permanently reoccupy Dara. The fortress that Belisarius defended so brilliantly in 530 fades from Byzantine control forever. Yet the battle itself lives on. The tactical innovations Belisarius employed at Dara, the integration of field fortifications with mobile cavalry, the use of concealed reserves, the exploitation of interior lines, the careful preparation of the battlefield, become studied by military commanders for centuries. Byzantine military manuals incorporate lessons from Dara. Medieval European commanders read Procopius's account and learned from Belisarius's example. The battle demonstrates that numerical and qualitative inferiority can be overcome through superior preparation, innovative tactics, and bold leadership. It proves that understanding terrain and enemy psychology can compensate for weakness in manpower. It shows that reserves, properly positioned and committed at the decisive moment, can turn the tide of battle. For Belisarius personally, Dara represents the moment he stepped from obscurity into history. The victory launched his career and established his reputation. Every subsequent triumph, the reconquest of North Africa, the invasion of Italy, the defeat of the Ostrogoths, traces its origin to that day in 530, when a young general with half an army defeated the Persian Empire. Dara was the beginning of a legend. The victory at Dara in 530 marks the beginning of one of the most remarkable military careers in history. But to understand the full magnitude of what Belisarius accomplished, we must follow his journey beyond that single battle and examine the man behind the legend. After the humiliation of Callinicum and his redemption during the Nika riots, Belisarius receives the assignment that will define his legacy. In 533, Emperor Justinian tasks him with an audacious mission: reconquer North Africa from the Vandal kingdom. The Vandals have controlled the region for a century, ever since they crossed from Spain and established their kingdom on the ruins of Roman Africa. They are a formidable naval power, controlling the Western Mediterranean and raiding coastal cities at will. Justinian's advisors consider the plan madness. The empire is still at war with Persia. Resources are stretched thin. The Vandals are well established and battle-hardened. But Justinian trusts Belisarius, and Belisarius accepts the challenge. In June of 533, a Byzantine fleet departs Constantinople carrying approximately 20,000 men. It is a pitifully small force to conquer an entire kingdom. But Belisarius has learned from Dara that numbers are not everything. The historian Procopius accompanies the expedition as Belisarius's secretary, providing us with a first-hand account of the campaign. His writings reveal details that illuminate Belisarius's character. During the 3-month voyage across the Mediterranean, Belisarius worries constantly that the fleet will scatter in stormy weather. To prevent this, he implements strict sailing protocols and communication systems. When ships do separate, he refuses to proceed until the entire fleet reunites, demonstrating his commitment to keeping his force intact. Procopius also records an incident that reveals Belisarius's concern for his troops. When soldiers fall ill from spoiled food, Belisarius does not simply replace them. He personally investigates the cause, discovers corruption in the supply chain, and takes measures to ensure his men receive proper provisions. This attention to soldier welfare, unusual for generals of the era, earns him intense loyalty from his troops. The African campaign is a masterpiece of strategic brilliance. Belisarius lands his forces and marches rapidly on Carthage, the Vandal capital. The Vandal king Gelimer assembles his forces to meet the invaders. The two armies clash at the Battle of Ad Decimum in September 533. Despite being outnumbered and fighting on unfamiliar terrain, Belisarius employs the same tactical principles he used at Dara: careful positioning, exploitation of enemy mistakes, and decisive commitment of reserves at critical moments. The Vandals are routed. Carthage falls without a siege. 3 months later, at the Battle of Tricamarum, Belisarius destroys the remaining Vandal forces. Gelimer flees into the mountains, but eventually surrenders. The Vandal kingdom, which has existed for over a century, ceases to exist. North Africa returns to Roman control. Belisarius achieves in 6 months what everyone believed impossible. He has conquered an entire kingdom with an army of 20,000 men. Emperor Justinian rewards Belisarius with a triumph, a ceremonial parade through Constantinople celebrating military victory. It is the first triumph granted since the days of the old Roman Empire, a deliberate echo of ancient glory. Belisarius marches through cheering crowds with Gelimer and Vandal treasure displayed as proof of his victory. At the height of the ceremony, Belisarius prostrates himself before Justinian, acknowledging that all glory belongs to the emperor. This gesture of humility and loyalty deeply impresses Justinian and secures Belisarius's position. But there is no rest for the empire's greatest general. In 535, Justinian orders Belisarius to Italy. The Ostrogothic kingdom, another barbarian successor state built on Roman ruins, controls the Italian peninsula. Justinian wants it back. He wants Rome itself back. And he believes only Belisarius can deliver it. The Italian campaign lasts 15 years and proves far more difficult than Africa. The Ostrogoths are fierce warriors with strong fortifications and competent leaders. The geography of Italy, with its mountains and rivers, favors defenders. The local population, though ethnically Roman, has lived under Gothic rule for generations and is not universally welcoming to Byzantine reconquest. Belisarius lands in Sicily in 535 and systematically reduces Gothic strongholds. He captures Naples after a difficult siege, then marches on Rome itself. The Eternal City, abandoned by the Goths who cannot defend it, opens its gates to Belisarius in December 536. For the first time in 60 years, Rome is under Roman control. The symbolism is overwhelming. Justinian's dream of restoration is becoming reality. But the Goths do not surrender. Under their new king Vitiges, they assemble a massive army and besiege Rome. For over a year, from March 537 to March 538, Belisarius defends the city with a garrison of only 5,000 men against a Gothic army estimated at 30,000 or more. He employs every trick he learned at Dara and beyond: field fortifications, night raids, psychological warfare, careful rationing of resources, and maintaining morale through personal example. The siege becomes legendary. Belisarius personally leads cavalry sorties against Gothic positions. He engineers the defense of Rome's ancient walls, adapting them for contemporary warfare. He manages the civilian population, preventing panic and maintaining order. When the Goths finally withdraw, Defeated by disease, starvation, and relentless Byzantine resistance, Belisarius has added another impossible victory to his record. The campaign continues. Belisarius captures Ravenna, the Gothic capital, in 540. The Gothic leadership offers him the crown of Italy, hoping to split him from Justinian. Belisarius pretends to accept, enters Ravenna peacefully, then arrests the Gothic leaders and claims Italy for the empire. It is a masterful piece of deception, though it raises questions about his methods and trustworthiness. By 540, Belisarius has reconquered North Africa and Italy, restoring vast territories to imperial control. He has defeated every enemy sent against him. He has proven himself perhaps the greatest general of his age, and then everything starts to fall apart. Justinian recalls Belisarius to Constantinople. The reasons are complex. Some historians suggest the emperor grows jealous of his general's fame and popularity. Others point to political factions at court who view Belisarius as a threat. There are whispers of conspiracy, suggestions that Belisarius might use his army to seize the throne. These accusations are almost certainly false. Belisarius demonstrates unfailing loyalty throughout his career. But perception matters more than reality in imperial politics. While Belisarius is in Constantinople, the situation in Italy deteriorates. A new Gothic king named Totila emerges and rallies Gothic resistance. Without Belisarius's leadership, the Byzantine position crumbles. Cities are lost. Armies are defeated. Everything Belisarius accomplished begins to unravel. In 544, Justinian reluctantly sends Belisarius back to Italy. But this time, the general is not given adequate resources. His army is small and poorly supplied. His requests for reinforcements are ignored or denied. He fights for years with insufficient forces against a resurgent Gothic kingdom. Despite his best efforts, he cannot replicate his earlier successes. The Italian campaign drags on inconclusively. Meanwhile, the Persian frontier erupts again. Khosrau I breaks the eternal peace and invades Byzantine territory. Belisarius is recalled from Italy and sent east. He campaigns against the Persians with some success, but the situation is stalemate. Neither side can achieve decisive victory. Eventually, another general named Narses is given command in Italy, with the resources Belisarius was always denied. Narses completes the reconquest, defeating Totila and ending the Gothic kingdom. It is a bitter irony for Belisarius that another general finishes what he started, succeeding largely because he receives the support Belisarius never got. The final years of Belisarius's life are clouded by controversy and legend. In 562, he is accused of participating in a conspiracy against Justinian. The charges are almost certainly fabricated, but Belisarius is arrested and imprisoned. His property is confiscated. The greatest general of his age is humiliated by the emperor he served faithfully for decades. After several months, Justinian reverses the decision. Belisarius is released, his property restored, his titles returned. But the damage is done. His reputation is tarnished. His health is failing. He withdraws from public life. A medieval legend claims that Belisarius was blinded on Justinian's orders and reduced to begging on the streets of Constantinople. This story, immortalized in paintings and literature, is almost certainly false. No contemporary source mentions blindness or begging, but the legend persists because it captures something true about Belisarius's fate: the tragic fall of a loyal servant betrayed by an ungrateful master. Belisarius dies in March 565, possibly of natural causes related to old age. He is approximately 60 years old. Just 8 months later, in November 565, Emperor Justinian dies as well. The two men who shaped Byzantine history for 4 decades pass from the stage within a year of each other. The epitaph history gives Belisarius is the last of the Romans. It is a recognition that in him, something of the old Roman spirit, the combination of military genius, personal courage, and civic virtue, lived on in an age that had largely forgotten it. He was not perfect. He made tactical mistakes, as at Callinicum. He could be ruthless when necessary, as during the Nika riots. His loyalty to Justinian, while admirable, sometimes bordered on the self-destructive. But his achievements are undeniable. He defeated the Persian Empire when everyone expected Byzantine annihilation. He conquered the Vandal kingdom with 20,000 men. He reclaimed Italy and restored Rome itself to Roman control. He defended cities against overwhelming odds and won battles he had no right to win. He revolutionized Byzantine military tactics and left a legacy that influenced warfare for centuries. The lessons of Belisarius's career, and particularly of the Battle of Dara, remain relevant. Leadership under pressure requires making bold decisions when conventional wisdom counsels caution. Preparation and planning can overcome numerical and material disadvantages. Understanding your enemy's strengths and weaknesses is as important as understanding your own. Morale and psychology often matter more than simple arithmetic of soldiers and weapons. Innovation wins battles. Belisarius did not fight the Persians the way previous Byzantine generals fought them. He adapted enemy tactics, integrated different types of forces in new ways, and exploited terrain to compensate for weakness. He thought creatively about problems others saw as insurmountable. The proper use of reserves can decide battles. At Dara, Belisarius kept his best troops uncommitted until the decisive moment. When that moment came, he struck with overwhelming force at the critical point. Timing matters. Knowing when to commit your strength, not just having strength to commit, is what separates good generals from great ones. Leadership by example inspires troops in ways orders cannot. When Belisarius personally led the charge at Dara, when he rode among his men during the siege of Rome, when he shared their dangers and hardships, he earned a loyalty that no amount of gold could buy. Soldiers follow leaders they believe in, and they believe in leaders who stand beside them in danger. But perhaps the most important lesson is about the relationship between military genius and political reality. Belisarius was arguably the greatest general of his age, yet he ended his life under a cloud of suspicion and disgrace. Military excellence alone does not guarantee success or security. The political dimension, maintaining relationships with civilian leadership, managing perceptions, navigating court intrigue, is as important as battlefield prowess. Belisarius excelled at war but struggled with politics, and ultimately politics destroyed him. The Battle of Dara stands as a monument to what is possible when genius meets opportunity. A 25-year-old general with an outnumbered, outmatched army defeated one of the great military powers of antiquity through intelligence, preparation, and audacity. It was not luck. It was not accident. It was the product of a brilliant mind seeing possibilities others missed and having the courage to act on that vision. Every generation produces leaders who face impossible odds and overwhelming challenges. The story of Belisarius at Dara reminds us that genius and determination can overcome material disadvantages, that careful preparation can level uneven playing fields, that bold action, grounded in sound strategy, can achieve what timid caution never could. These lessons transcend their historical moment and speak to anyone facing their own battles, their own impossible odds, their own moment of truth. If you enjoyed this story of how a young general changed the course of history, make sure you are subscribed to this channel and have notifications enabled. In the next video, we will explore how Belisarius conquered an entire kingdom with just 15,000 men, a campaign that shocked the ancient world and restored Roman glory to North Africa. Leave a comment below. What do you think was Belisarius's most brilliant decision at the Battle of Dara? Was it the trench system, the hidden reserve, the use of Hunnic mercenaries, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts and join the discussion. Until next time, remember that history's greatest victories often come from the most unlikely sources.